Yeah, and just really enthusiastic about the just intersection of tech and entrepreneurship, which is what we're going to talk about today. And then Kai, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka. So I'm Kai. I'm also a junior at UC Berkeley. I'm studying mechanical engineering and business as part of the MET program. Something I'm very interested in is electronics, mechanics, and materials. So I'm excited to see what types of projects you guys have been working on and get some great pitches going.
Great. So I'll give an introduction to our fund. So we're a regular venture capital fund. We're not a club. And we identify the world's top early career engineers, designers, and product minds. And we connect them with a close-knit career-long support community. And we invest in the companies that they start or the companies that they join. Just to break that down a bit, essentially we do up to $500,000 investments, and we've done investments in all of the ranges in between, just from $5,000 checks on ideas we like, all the way up to leading pre-seed and seed venture capital rounds. And besides our investing activity, where we focus mostly on startups outside of or out of all types of universities, whether that's MBA programs, undergrad programs, grad programs. We also do a lot of just fund building initiatives. And one of the most recent initiatives we've been working on as a fund is something called Contrary Talent, which is open to anyone, not just people interested in like tech or venture capital, really anyone in any career path. And we've gathered a few hundred people that we think would be great founders one day, or are interested in joining an early stage company. And we put them in this career community where we send them opportunities to work at startups, connect them with people looking for co-founders or people for their founding teams, and also just host events with founders and people in the entrepreneurship space. So we're really active on all university campuses. We're at about 40 universities right now. And we are looking to expand that as well. So if you go to our website and you see that we're not at your school, then you should definitely, there's an email that you can look at and try to bring Contrary to your school. And just a bit more about our model. It's like three parts. There's the talent component, which I just talked about, where we're looking at engineers, designers, and product minds, and helping them find jobs at companies, whether that's founding or joining one. We also do the capital. So the investing has been part of our model since the first day. We understand that supporting companies is the best when you're giving them money and financially backing them up. And we want to invest in the best university companies, regardless of what school you're coming out of. And the last thing is community. So we host a lot of events on campuses just like this one, go to hackathons, have these pitch competitions, just to help people see if they want to become founders or they're interested in getting involved in this space. And so the reason that we're here today is we're especially interested in partnering with future builders. Technical talent is something that we emphasize a lot. And when we say technical talent, we don't mean just in software or technology. That's hardware talent, all types of engineering talent, as well as like designers, more product focused people, really all parts of talent when we say like future builders. So that's a really broad definition. So that's a little bit more about us. And so getting into the format for today, so we're gonna run, so we did an intro and we'll do a short pitch workshop where we just talk through some good practices for pitching and what we like to see in pitches, how you should structure pitches. And then we'll also give you some time in the middle to prepare for the pitch competition. So after hearing kind of what we're looking for and what we think belongs in a pitch, I'd imagine like you'd want to maybe, even if you have something prepared, like go back to the drawing board and prep a bit more. So we're going to give you that prep time, and then we'll run the pitch competition. So the format is we're going to do really, really short pitches. We just want to do 2 to 3 minutes. You can pitch your hack that you're working on today and talk about how you'd make it into a company, or you can talk about any startup idea you have. So this doesn't have to be something you've already built out, although we would definitely love to see like the hack you're working on here. And also slides are optional. So since they're really short, we don't think they're absolutely necessary, but if you have something to share on your screen, that's also something you can do. And the winner, so we'll pick one winner. I think we have about 20 or so, or a little over 20 people signed up. So we're gonna pick one winner to get a $500 prize directly from us. Yeah, so that's going to be just the format, and then I'll hand it over to Kai to start with the workshop on pitches.
Perfect, thanks Priyanka. So let's talk about how you guys can craft a great pitch. Okay, nice. Okay, so what do investors look for in pitches? Investors, at the end of the day, they're making a financial decision in your idea, in your company, in your hack, what have you. You have to remember that purpose. Some investors might be good with tech, like at least us in Contrary, where we've been working with the Berkeley environment. We're very like tech-focused people, like Priyanka's Eeks. A bunch of other of our pod members are also very technical, but a lot of investors are not. So you have to keep that in mind when you're pitching and focus on the really big picture vision type stuff, not just the nitty gritty technical details. It's really cool to know like the algorithms that are working, that's like ML AI, but really at the end of the day, it's more of the vision and the big picture that's going to sell your idea to your investors. Comparisons to well-known companies and established companies are really helpful. You guys have probably seen like the Foursquare chart showing like where your product or your thing compares to other industry existing companies and other products. So that's extremely helpful to basically provide a solid ground reference for investors to make a judgment of your product. And keep in mind as well, great technology doesn't always make great business and instant business. We have self-driving companies that are mostly focused on experiments, research and development. And actually at Berkeley, we've had experiences with really great technical founders that have extremely good, they've been working on like PhD ideas for 3, 4, 5 years for their companies. But it turns out that those ideas are not that marketable. They're very great research topics. They're very good PhD paper topics, but in terms of like return on investment, not very high. So keep in mind that when you're pitching as well. Keep in mind as well that pitching at a hackathon demo is completely different than pitching to a VC. There's different stakes involved. There's different things you want to highlight, different people behind it, and different, environment.
Yeah, and then just to make like kind of the comparison between pitching to a VC versus pitching for like a hackathon prize is that at a hackathon, they're more interested in what kind of like the internal components of your project, like what moving parts are you putting together, what like resources, APIs, that type of thing you've referenced in your work or have used in your work. And they're more focused on how you built something. Where when you're pitching to a VC, they might be interested in a few technical details if there's some very like proprietary technology or highly specialized algorithm or intellectual property or something like that. But they're more concerned about why you built something and where you think you can go with it. So that's like the one thing to keep in mind is that with hackathons, it's about the how, and with VCs, it's more about the why.
Yeah, and I think as well, to go off of that, a lot of the time as a VC, you are also investing in the people, and talking about the why about your project gives a really great insight into what type of founder are you, what type of builder are you? Because it's one thing to just invest in a product, but investing in a founder team, you're actually investing in the team, and especially at the stage that Contrary focuses on, we're hedging a bet on the team with our investments. So that's the biggest thing we really want to see. Like, why are you making this pitch? Why is this interesting to you? What do you think you can do with it? Where will you take it? That type of stuff. So talking about that startup pitch, where the main points come in, Everything should be centered about your problem and your solution. There's other parts to like longer pitches, especially with like later stage companies that are actually pitching to companies like Sequoia, uh, firms that will actually be investing in Series A, B, C. But for these, for those pitches, you need like monetization plan, roadmap. But for this pitch, 2 to 3 minutes, the focus is really problem and solution. That's really what's going to highlight, why are you thinking about this? Maybe talk about like pain points that you've had in your experience, pain points that you've seen like family, friends, people around you have. That makes it really personal and also really instantly relatable to whoever's listening to it. Keeping it short is really critical. Brevity is critical. VC pitch time is not as, it's extremely expensive. So no unnecessary information, no hypotheticals, really stick to facts. If you have evidence, if you have proof, really show that. If you have concrete like prototypes built, use that to show your stuff. Don't just be all talk, walk the walk as well as talking the talk. Taglines, mottos, slogans, those are all helpful. You really want to make sure your pitch leaves something in the VC's mind. You don't want the VC to walk away from your pitch thinking, oh, that was kind of meh, it was a good product, but I don't think really, like, I'm not really excited. You want them to be like, no, where can I write a check? Like, where can I send this check immediately, right? You want them to have that type of takeaway from your pitch. And these types of taglines, mottos really help you stand out in their minds. I am muted. My apologies. In terms of general principles of pitching, you should know what type of fund and what type of investors you're pitching to, really doing your research on who you're talking to, what their expertise is. A lot of the time, venture partners have specific verticals that they work with and they're specialized in. So really knowing like what type of portfolio companies do they have? What have they invested in the past? That's really important. Keep in mind as well, to catapult the start of your pitch, every pitch is a story. And with a story, the intro is the part that hooks you in. So you need a good intro. Otherwise, your VCs are not going to be very attentive to your pitch, and it's not really going to stick out in their mind. You can let one person do the talking, especially in short pitches. That's usually the most efficient way you can do it. And then maybe have another person answer questions or add on tiny little tidbits. It just usually helps with cohesiveness, less friction between like switching people, knowing who's doing what. There's always some time lost between like switching people who are talking. So just letting one person do the talking makes it a lot more efficient. And then answering the little man, you have to listen to your own pitch and think about, okay, what sort of doubts do I have coming in my mind right now? What are sort of questions that people could be asking? So what? Why does that matter? Questions that people are going to ask, so they don't come up as questions. You should answer them at the very beginning, or at least as part of your pitch, so that when those questions come up in someone's mind, they'll say, oh, okay, they already answered that. I understand now. Or at least if they do ask that question at the end, you can say, I can show you on slide 3 that this is what we covered and this is our answer to that question. So that always helps, like preemptively identifying certain criticisms that people may have with your product, with your idea, always helps. And it really also bolsters your pitch in the whole sense. Don't also recite or try to memorize a pitch word for word. It's really painfully obvious when you have someone reading to you. It doesn't seem as genuine. They don't seem as excited. It seems like, they're standing in front of the class reading off of like a script in like fourth senior year high school, right? Like reading something. It doesn't seem super genuine. And people can sniff that out like immediately. We've had a lot of experiences as part of Contrary of like very canned pitches, and I can't tell you enough as to how much that like turns you off as an investor just completely. You'll just immediately say, okay, this is not worth my time. So don't try to memorize the pitch. It's always good to memorize like what you're trying to say. What am I trying to come across in this slide? What's the main point? If you have extremely like important points that you want to cover, or numbers that you can't really miss out, some percentages or statistics that really support your point, you can put those in the speaker notes underneath your slides. And then those don't show up on your slides and you don't have to memorize them. You can just read off of there and kind of riff off of that. So that's really helped a lot of times with pitches. And those speaker notes, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just saying, like, the speaker notes functionality is extremely important. It's like one of the most useful things in like PowerPoint and slides that you can use.
Yeah, so I also wanted to emphasize with the preparation, when you're pitching to a specific VC fund, it's very easy to actually tell what they're looking for, because most of these funds will publish online like what their list of like values and principles are, and specifically what they look for. And the way that they'll do this is investors like to do what they call theses. And so theses are like, for an individual investor, they say like, what do I think is going to be like a good investment this year? What do I think are like the hot trends in this industry? What types of companies am I looking for? And lucky for founders, VCs love to publish these things online. They often do blog posts at the beginning of the year. In fact, like just recently in the past 2 weeks, most of the big like name brand VC funds have published their theses, where they will like explicitly list out like what they want to invest in, what they think are like industries they're excited in. So some of the recurring themes that I've seen in theses for 2021, one is definitely they want to invest in like future of work companies, especially like software that makes like productivity at home or like remote productivity easier, because remote work will be around for a while. So of course VCs want to invest in the next Zoom, the next Slack, or the next Trello. So that's one thesis I've been seeing really often. And I think one other thing is that lots of VCs are now like looking more at if teams can hold up to things like pandemics. That's something that they didn't consider in the past, but like a business that's able to adapt quickly to, you know, unexpected, like very low probability events like this. I think that's going to be one other thing that I've seen a lot in theses for 2021. So in the case that you're ever pitching to a specific VC, you've got to go look up what they're tweeting, what they're posting on their blog, because they will really explicitly say like what they want to invest in and what they think is going to be like the next great idea. And so with Contrary specifically, there's two big things that we emphasize in all of the things that we put out on the internet. One is definitely team. We look for super committed teams because in college, a lot of people want to just try starting out a company but might not be as serious about it. So we're looking for very committed founders who are ready to go all in on the company. And the second thing that Contrary emphasizes and posts about a lot is traction as well. And we like to see like you've built something out and you're able to prove that someone wants to use it. So yeah, the preparation component, it's a super obvious thing to do. So that's pretty important.
Perfect. Yeah. So let's talk about some common pitch mistakes you may come across or encounter. So make sure not to focus too much on the technical details. Like I talked about before, the audience, which in this case are the VCs, they don't really want to know like the very nitty gritty technical stuff, like a hackathon demo might want to know. It's cool to know, it's cool to have like reference slides. You can always have your bulk pitch at the very beginning where that's what you're going to actually show to the investors, but you can have reference slides after where you have all like the cool technical details, all the cool stats. So in case an investor comes around that says, hey, I want to know like what's the technology behind this, you can say, oh, okay, I'll just go to this slide, our reference slide where we have that, and you can immediately pull that up. And that also shows like an extraordinary amount of preparation, that you already had that like technical question prepared for and you have a reference slide. So that's super helpful. Also, don't fail or don't not explain where you're with your idea. You need to clearly say, is it built out? How much research you've done? Show that you really know what's up with your project and what's up with your plan, especially like competitors, space, that type of stuff. You really need to know that when you're pitching to someone, because that's what they're going to ask. And obviously, understanding who you're pitching to is extremely important. Not knowing that can basically kill your pitch. Like Priyanka said, you should look at these theses and see, okay, does my pitch align with their goals? I think a lot of the time when investors send out these theses and these Twitter posts, they're kind of signaling to founders, hey, this is what I want. I have money. Come to me and pitch to me because I have the money, right? That's what they're signaling to founders. And you can really take advantage of that. Because if a VC is saying, I want X technology, and you have X technology, that's like a green light for you to go to them, right? So really, a common pitch to stake is not knowing that and maybe going to the wrong investor or talking to the wrong people as well. Make sure your goals align with them. And also remember not to get too much into your solution without demonstrating that your problem is really a real need and could also be a big business one day. I think, especially on the technical side, yeah, I've interacted with a lot of like technical founders, a lot of PhD people from like Lawrence Berkeley Lab, and they really like to focus on the solution and say, this is such an amazing solution. It's like, you know, it's this like cure for everything. It can do this, it can do that, it can do this, it can solve so many problems, but they don't really talk about like how it can become a business. And remember that when a VC is investing or looking to invest, they need to make a return on that investment in order to want that. If your idea or project company doesn't encourage that and doesn't really like inspire in the investor's mind, like if you don't see the dollar signs light up in their head or in their eyes, like that's a little bit bad, right? So you should know that you want to present this as something that can become like the next unicorn, decacorn, that type of stuff. That's the goal, right? But obviously not everything works that way, but you should still have a really clear idea of like, you know, is this going to become a big business? Does this satisfy a real need that we can do today? Is this like super concrete? That really helps with your presentation.
Just an example of a company that where it's like a great solution, but not a huge business is we last year talked to a company that made these special chips that you can put on packages, and they have all these cool features like tracking the temperature that the package is in, and like all the distances it's traveled, and it's like automatically scans the packages and all of that. And it's this like universal, really cool little like stamp to put on packages, and it's a great solution. But this founder who had been working on this for like a decade too, as part of like postdoc and PhD research, he wasn't able to explain why exactly this is necessary. They use like shipping labels for that. People are doing these manual scans on packages in factories and things, and that isn't really a big problem for them. That it seems to be working fine for them. So even though he was presenting like, hey, like I've invented this universal chip that it's super cool, has all these cool features, it's not really worth their money, and they didn't really need it. And it's more like a nice to have, not like a absolutely need to have this, or else we're going out of business. So that's like the reason that we didn't invest. So that's one thing, especially with technical founders, is that having a solution with no problem that it's solving is not going to get you an investment, just because it's cool technology, but it's not a cool product. And sometimes you can, change cool technology that you've invented into something that's marketable, and that can eventually be sold after doing some research and stuff. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is taking your hack beyond today. So I know that people who are coming to this are probably interested in entrepreneurship, or maybe taking like their hacks more seriously or turning them into companies after this. So I'll talk about some resources and opportunities. So the biggest opportunity I think that is there in college, but kind of goes away once you graduate, is there are these college-focused funds who are really looking to support like university entrepreneurs. So there's Contrary, and we're investing in like more late companies, so around $500,000, and then Dorm Room Fund and Rough Draft Ventures, they do more like $10,000 to $20,000 for earlier stage companies. And these funds are a really great resource because these can be some of the easiest ways to get like a high quality investor in your company, and also get like the help that you need as maybe a first time founder. And yeah, so these are really great opportunities which aren't really available outside of the college ecosystem. Like Contrary will invest in people like maybe a year or two after they've graduated. But once you're like completely out of the university ecosystem, that opportunity is not there anymore. The other thing I wanted to mention is that you're not only limited to these college focused funds. There's big VCs, like institutional venture capital funds, like the big name brand funds, who will invest in current students. But the thing is that the stakes are going to be a bit higher for them. Because the younger and less experienced you are, the more of kind of a liability you are to them. They don't know if you'll be a great founder if you're just starting out in your career. So sometimes they'll have special conditions, such as that you have to work on this full time after graduating, or they expect you to drop out or take a year of leave to work on the company, because their biggest concern is that, why would I invest in a college student who has a million other time commitments when I could invest in someone who's out of college and can commit to the company fully? So that's just like the word of caution with bigger VC funds, is that they usually will have pretty strict conditions if they're investing in college students. And then another huge opportunity that's really unique to college is equity-free funding. So the first 2 points, you have to give away a percentage of your company, or give this investor a stake in your company. But there's so many opportunities to be funded where you actually don't have to give up any equity. So lots of companies, organizations, and institutions will have these like grant opportunities where they'll essentially just give you money without taking any percentage of your company. These are like some of the best opportunities for college students, especially if you don't know if you want to be serious about the company yet and you just want to try things out, and some funding would help with that. So one is that pitch competitions, just like this one, lots of the prizes at HackDavis can help you take the prize money can help you take the company kind of far, right? Can help you buy more resources, or maybe spend some more time on the project, or buy more hardware. So pitch competitions and hackathons are great. One really awesome one is the UC launch competition. So this is one that's open to anyone at any UC school. And yeah, that's a really great competition, because they also have a lot of really prestigious VCs at their demo day. So they'll help you kind of get another round of funding after doing their competition. And a lot of you might have heard of Y Combinator. And while getting into Y Combinator is very competitive, and a hack might not get into Y Combinator, they have what's called the Startup School Grant, where if you go through their like online training program, and they'll teach you about startups and like building a company and all of that, they actually have this $15,000 grant that they give out to the top like 20 or so companies who did startup school. So this is really great also for if you don't think you're ready to like fully commit and apply to Y Combinator, but you want to get involved with this and learn more. That's a great opportunity too. And they give it out to a lot of students as well. Most of the winners are like recent grads or current students. And then you've also probably heard of the terms like incubator, accelerator, fellowship. So I'll just like kind of go through the differences between those. So incubators and accelerators, they're usually like semester-long programs where you have like a specific end goal. So for a lot of them, it's that you have a demo day and you're going to raise money after you're done with the accelerator, and they'll often maybe give you a little bit of starter money, like a few $1,000s, without taking any stake in your company, like equity. And they'll usually also be very supportive. Like they might have like a instructional component, like a startup class type of thing. And they might also bring in speakers and advisors and that type of thing. So those are for if you want your startup to be in a environment where it can get a lot of support and have a lot of different people looking at it and helping you out with your ideas. So that's a really great opportunity, and most schools have some type of incubator or accelerator program. Like often it's structured as a class, like you can take an entrepreneurship class and it's essentially like an incubator where you're working on the idea for a semester. And sometimes it'll be run by like a club on campus or something along that line. And then the other thing is, you might have heard the term fellowship. So some VC funds run like fellowships where they place you at a startup that they've invested in for like a summer internship. But there's also fellowships that some schools run where you come in knowing that you want to start a company or come up with an idea, but you don't really have that idea yet. So fellowships are often more open-ended, and your result from the fellowship is like a business plan or startup idea. And so just like if you're going to investors, applying to accelerators and incubators, they have specific wants from student founders. So as I mentioned before, they look for a commitment above anything else. So if you've graduated, they expect you definitely to be quitting your job to work on your company eventually. A lot of times people will start out working a full-time job or like a day job and also working on their company, and then eventually kind of take the leap and start working on their company full time. But if you've graduated college, they expect you to have some idea on how to do that. You do have to really be a full-time entrepreneur if you're going to take outside investment. And if you're still in school, they want to see that you can balance being a founder, because they know that you might want to finish your degree or like stay in school for the next few years, but they probably do expect you to like work on it full time after graduation, or they'll talk about like their specific terms for university founders. And honestly, like my best word of advice is that the university environment is a unique place to build a company. And if you want to give it a shot, it's like really the best time to do it. Your general risks are lower when you're building in the college ecosystem, because if it doesn't work out, like you can get the degree and get your regular job or follow whatever path you were going to do anyway. You have access to so many resources and sources of funding, which they're not going to give to you once you graduate. It's way harder to raise money, for example, after you've graduated. You also, like for technical founders, you're working on like an app or some software, for example, you have access to really great technical help on campus. So regardless of where you go to school, there's grad students, professors, other really talented undergrads who are all probably, you can persuade people to take an interest in your company and come on as an advisor or a co-founder, especially like in college. That's a great place to find a co-founder. If you already have friends you've worked on projects with, like those are going to be great people to be co-founders. And one last thing is that your .edu email address is very meaningful regardless of where you go to school. So there might be, you might not like go to a school where there's a lot of entrepreneurship resources, or that's like not really a big, it's not really a big focus on campus, and you don't know a lot of student founders or people who are starting companies. But definitely the fact that you have this .edu email address, an investor is going to like look twice at that, regardless of where you go to school. Because one of the big competitions in venture capital is getting to founders early, before anybody else does, and being like the first investor. And if you're a student and you're starting your first company and they like the idea, they're definitely going to like that they've found you early, and can like build that relationship with you early on. So yeah, I think like even if you don't know a lot of founders or go to like a, say like entrepreneurial school, that doesn't really matter, because just being a university student is super attractive to investors anyway, because they know like there's so much talent and potential at that stage. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and move into Q&A. So I'll start with the first question Simon asked in the chat. and said, I think everyone knows that Shark Tank is pretty popular. What are some of the differences between pitches contrary years versus what's on Shark Tank? So this is a great question. This really comes down to the type of business. So there's there's two specific like types of like revenue models or like profit models for businesses. One is called a lifestyle business and the other is called like a growth business. So a lifestyle business is something that it's in the name. It can help like sustain someone's lifestyle. They can maybe hire a few people, keep it running to pay their expenses and pay themselves a salary, but they don't expect to grow it beyond a certain point. So lifestyle businesses are often like food and beverage brands, clothing brands, things like boutiques or shops, or a lot of the local services companies like landscaping, like construction. Those are mostly lifestyle businesses where they don't expect like crazy exponential growth. They want to grow to a certain point, maybe a few $1 million in revenue. And at that point, they're not going to make much more effort to grow beyond that. So Shark Tank, most of the businesses that go on there are lifestyle businesses that don't expect crazy exponential growth. And even though they are doing like percentage investments and it's kind of similar to venture capital, the reason that they're going to Shark Tank is a lot more for publicity than the fact that they like actually need the investment, because those are lifestyle businesses for the most part. Yeah, so that's one thing with Shark Tank. But venture capital businesses, the reason you don't see a lot of like software companies on Shark Tank, for example, is because they expect what's called venture scale returns, which is like multiplying an investment by 10x, 100x. Like there's so many IPOs this year and last year, for example, of like software companies which have gotten like hundreds, thousands of multiples of return on investment. So Shark Tank businesses generally don't reach that scale, which is why they go to kind of seek like a publicity type of investment opportunity. Yeah, I think that's the main difference. Another thing I'll say is that on Shark Tank, the terms that they offer the founders, like for example, buying 50% of their business, that's like unheard of in venture capital. VCs will never ask to buy like 50% of a business. That's very rare. And the kind of valuations that they do are also pretty low compared to VC valuations. Those are more in the billions, where Shark Tank businesses are in the millions. So hopefully that answered the question.
I think I want to quickly add something there as well. Like Shark Tank is TV and it has to be super dramatized. Like I'm sure it's very entertaining to watch Mr. Wonderful yell at someone for having a bad pitch, but like in those 5 minutes, that is not really how VC works. Like in our cycles, at least, it takes like weeks to talk with founders. You might even have multiple meetings with different members of the team, talking about different stuff, and then you have to make the decision. So it's not like 5 minutes pitch and then you get the money in your pocket. It's way more thought out than that, and it's way more like really a lot goes on behind the scenes as well. Shark Tank is TV and has to be super dramatized, so just keep that in mind. And no commercial breaks in VC pitches.
Yeah. Great. So the next question is from Amanda, who asked, if our hack is more social good oriented, do you have to explain how we would monetize it? So this is a bit, I guess, like this is a bit of like a more about like what the goals of who you're pitching to are. So just to be like totally transparent with our pitches, like if you have like when you're pitching to us today, we understand that these are mostly just ideas, or like prototypes, and like you've just been like spending like the past 24 48 hours hacking on something. So we're not as concerned as with like the financial quality of like an investment it would be, and we're more concerned about like three things really: the delivery of your pitch, the quality of your idea, and I think the creativity aspect as well. So this is definitely like less of like, would we invest in this, and more of, are you pitching well? Is this a good idea? And have you thought this out? So if it's social good oriented, the way that you can kind of explain monetization, maybe not in the pitch today, but in general, is how you're going to attract donations. So there are really huge nonprofits. Some examples are Khan Academy, the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation, who they have to still explain to people who are their donors or giving them money, what they're going to do with their money, what they're going to do if given X amount of donations. So there's still kind of like a financial feasibility part involved, but it's less about how are we going to make money, and it's more like if you give us a donation or contribute to us or give us a grant or something, how are we going to make the best use of that money? Why is our company or our idea the best thing to donate to? Because in social good things or nonprofits, you're not really pitching to investors, you're pitching to donors. But for today's purposes, I think definitely just focus on delivery, creativity, and like quality of pitch. Because we know in 3-minute pitches, you can't really talk about like business models or anything like that too in detail. Great. So the next question is, what's your thoughts on the mindset of investors in these times? COVID-19, there's no personal meeting. You're worried about the founder when they're asking for millions, raising millions without ever meeting in person. Yeah, this is a great question. I think one thing is that lots of VCs are still meeting people in person. They're going on walks and stuff like that, probably. I really highly doubt that there have been lots of investments made without meeting founders in person. I'm sure they take precautions and whatnot, but I will say that it's very rare to get money without meeting in person, even in COVID times, just because like the possibility of like being scammed, for example, is just like so high if you're not meeting someone in person. So I'm sure they are meeting in person. Like for us, we have made investments without meeting teams in person because we are a university focused fund, so we're not investing as high stakes. But if they're investing like millions of dollars and making really large investments, I think there will be some degree of like in-person meetings still happening. I think another thing is that a common misconception with like venture capital is that someone just like pitches an idea and then they're getting an investment immediately after. That's not true. Usually what happens is there will have been an existing relationship between a VC and a founder, because founders want to build relationships with people they want investments from, like sometimes years before they actually want a check. So there are companies that like I've been talking to since my first semester of college, because it's like more about like making sure you have that investor support and they're really updated on all your progress. So that's another thing, is I'm sure that there were existing relationships and that's what investments were made out of. But that's an interesting question. Okay, and then this other question is about how VCs are looking at decentralized organizations, DAOs, and blockchain as an investment. So one thing is that there are actually lots of VC funds that specialize only in blockchain specific like technologies. Like one of our team members, Sunil, who works with us at Berkeley, he works at a place called Polychain, which is just focused on blockchain investments. So I think a lot of traditional VCs stay away from it just because they don't know a lot about the space, or a lot of them might have different ideas about like that, because it is definitely a bit like controversial. But I know that there are tons of VC funds and individual investors who are just focused on blockchain investments and things like in that space. So that's what I think most blockchain companies are getting their funding from, is like from investors who are just focused on that industry. Great. Yeah, I'll give a minute or two if anyone else wants to type in some questions or uh, has anything else.
Yes, we'll be starting pitches right now, right after this question.
Yeah. So could you clarify what you mean? Like, do you mean with like with contrary or just like our own work experiences or? Oh, okay. Yeah. I think just like Uh, I think we can actually, since it's 5:48, we might have time to do like a 5 minute break or something. So then people can like gather with their teams and like reconvene and stuff. So we can probably start like maybe 5 minutes before 3. So then everyone just like can decompress. Yeah, so just like personal experiences. I worked at a startup the summer before college. And then I think my involvement has been more with VC stuff since coming to college. I did research at a consumer fund last summer, along with like a regular internship, just like for fun. And I've been advising companies. And I think the other thing that's like really helped with like in terms of entrepreneurial involvements is at Berkeley there's a lot of like startup communities. So one of those is Sigma Eta Pi, which is like a entrepreneurship dedicated fraternity, and Kai and I are actually both in that. And then there's another group called Kairos, which is like an entrepreneur society where we talk more about like ideas, and have like debates and things like that. So yeah, that's like just my loose involvement, I guess. But yeah, Kai, do you want to talk a bit about your experience?
Sure. Yeah, I similar. Worked in like carbon nanotube startup research group type. It turned out to be very shady, so I left. Um, but yeah, same as well. Sigma Eta Pi. That's been a blast with making like random projects and startup ideas. Some people have done really great stuff there. I think someone has started like a social good startup page sort of thing, and someone else has, I believe, done like a vegan cooking thing. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, we can get right into the break then.